We have invited here the experts from different countries, from different regions. Apart from Zakarpattia, our institute also works in Bessarabia and in Bukovina, because these are also multinational regions that also border on the European Union and face similar issues and problems. So this gives us the panoramic view of the issue. I would like to introduce here Volodymyr Kulyk, who is the professor at the Kyiv School of Economics, one of the few Ukrainians who really knows the rights of the national minorities. I'm talking about the language rights, and who knows how these rights look like in the European countries and Latin American countries and many other countries of the world. Lots of people talk about this issue, but probably not that many people know about this issue. Mr. Kulyk, could you please mention this framework, why the national minority rights are really important for the United Europe, for the EU, for the equality of rights and freedoms of all people in all the countries in the entire EU, and how the Ukrainian story of fighting for our rights, for our language, a complicated story, may help us understand better our national minorities and how we can manage all these things in order to get not the problem, but to get some benefits that would help and contribute to our Euro integration. Thank you very much for invitations. I'm really happy to be in such a distinguished community. And well, here we have the panel with the representatives of many expert communities, and here we also have the representatives of the regional administrations, and this is a very good combination of participants. There are two major reasons why it is important to ensure the right of national minorities and why it is part of the Euro integration, because we have to do it. We have to be honest with ourselves. We had to review our legislation on national minorities. As you've said, we brought the situation back to 2017, and the majority of Ukrainian political and expert community didn't want it to happen. We didn't consider it to be just and justified, particularly during the war. And particularly considering the situation that the war categorized the decolonization imperative. But we really want to become part of the EU. And there are tools available in the countries who are already members of the EU to exert pressure on Ukraine. And, for example, if we have to, well, so far we do not hear some radical or marginalized opinions, and that's good. So this was the negative piece of news. Well, probably we do not very much want it to happen, but we have to do it. But why we need to want it? Because ensuring the rights of the national minorities makes us so just as attractive as Europe is. If we want to join the EU, and if we do not improve ourselves and our country, it will not only be deceit of ourselves, but also of those people in the EU. We want to live better, but living better is not only about better salaries, but about better protection of human rights, about respect for diversity, about many other things. And these are those positive things. Talking about the past by itself doesn't give any moral right to insist on certain rights and privileges here and now. A bright example, considering the yesterday's attacks in Amsterdam. Israel lost the moral right to claim the Jews' right. Well, their rights should be protected considering democratic points, but probably not it's not about Israel that now are involved in genocide against Palestinians. So I do not want Ukraine to discriminate national minorities just from the viewpoint of history. If we want our national minorities to understand us and to support us, it's just because we have to understand and support them. If we want the Hungarian people to understand why derussification, decolonization is important for us and strengthening our national identity is important for us, we as Ukrainians have to understand why it is important for the Hungarians to preserve Hungarian identity. We definitely do not discriminate anybody against his or her origin, but we have to understand that not everybody wants to become Ukrainians and lose his or her national identity. So we cannot make people do it. So how we can strike a reasonable balance, how we can combine the joint identity and respect for individual identity. I think that the compromise should be built around the idea of justice. So what is justice? I think it is just and fair to require that all the Ukrainians know the Ukrainian language. I think that the Hungarian people will understand that the Ukrainian system of education is built in such a way that it gives enough knowledge of the Ukrainian language to all who are in the system of education, because these people should not be marginalized at the job market. On the other hand, if the Ukrainians, for example, require that everybody studies in the Ukrainian language, probably it is not just, because the majority of the Hungarian people or Hungarian minority thinks that probably in such situation they won't be able to preserve their Hungarian identity, considering the Trianon legacy. So Trianon does not give a right to require some concessions on the part of Ukraine, but we still have to understand this sensitivity. And, well, definitely for Ukraine, it is not good and not considered to be moral the fact that Orban is still communicating with Putin while Putin is killing Ukrainians. We are talking about certain civilizational choice between the evil and the good. Now Orban is presenting the Brussels pressure in a way that is similar to the pressure of the Soviet Union long time ago. So this comparison definitely is unacceptable. And now Orban is the fifth column inside the European Union. Definitely it is not just for Ukrainians, but at the same time it is not just to make the Ukrainian Hungarians in Zakarpattia be responsible for them. These people want to preserve their national identity. Definitely they want to protect Ukraine, but they should not pay price for the Orban's policy. Thank you for your answer. Definitely Ukrainian Hungarians from Zakarpattia making their contribution to the development of Ukraine. Lots of them are fighting in the battlefield. And in order to, again, have a look at the situation, my next question is to Andrzej Sadecki, who is the head of the Central European Department at the OSW in Warsaw. So are we unique regarding these issues with national minorities? Or, for example, when we are talking about the Europe, are there any similar problems? How these problems have been addressed from historical point of view, and how bilateral situations, problems between neighbors who integrated into EU and NATO have been addressed? So, how it's possible to resolve bilateral issues on the way to the EU?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the invitation, first of all. It's not my first time in Zakarpattia, but first time at this conference. I received a difficult task, but I will try to start with a little bit of a wider picture. Um, yeah. Okay, I'll maybe take it off because I hear the voice. So let me start with 2 points about the region, about Central Europe, and I mean here Central Europe widely. I think in a way you understand it in the institute. So the region between the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea, and the Adriatic. So roughly all the countries between Estonia and Albania, including Ukraine. So first characteristic is, of course, the diversity, which is quite unique for the region, the religious, ethnic, linguistic diversity, which is a given. The neighbors, the borders were changing. They are often not exactly reflecting the ethnic composition of the countries. So we have Polish minorities in Lithuania, in the Czech Republic, in Ukraine, Hungarians all over the regions, Ukrainians also in a number of countries, and we have obviously throughout the last decades the examples of peaceful coexistence and the legacy of violence that we have to manage. The other factor I would like to refer to is complicating the things, which is the post-imperial factor. So the fact that 200 years ago this region was basically dominated by four empires: Russian, Prussian, Austrian, Ottoman. 100 years ago we had about a dozen of countries. Now we have 20 countries of the region, and of course the ethnic boundaries are complicated. On the top of it, we have post-empires, or we have countries which revive the sort of imperial thinking, which are weaponizing or instrumentalizing these issues. So, of course, from the point of view of the minorities, currently the situation is probably the best in history. I mean, especially for the countries that are members of the EU. Obviously, it doesn't mean that the minority question is solved. I mean, it's always a matter of negotiation and somehow of a compromise. I think what we should keep in mind is that there is a hostile actor that wants to instrumentalize this issue, which doesn't mean that all the problems it instrumentalizes are not real. I mean, these problems are real and they need to be resolved. And I think here is obviously an important role for the minorities themselves, because it's not only a bilateral state-to-state issue. I mean, of course, the minority rights or the protection of the minorities, it is one of the conditions to enter the EU, but the EU itself does not regulate the minority issue. So it's the problem in the sort of pre-accession phase, and I think the minorities will benefit from the EU accession probably the most. So they should definitely be the agents of resolving this issue. So I'll stop here.
Yes, thank you. It also seems to me that minorities are going to win the most from the accession of the EU. In particular, we can say so about the Hungarian minority, because for the first time they will live in the common space with Hungary with no borders. And I think that this is the objective goal because of which the Hungarian minority leaders in the Zakarpattia region signed the letter last year to the Prime Minister Viktor Orban, asking him not to block opening of negotiations with the EU. And we are really grateful to our Hungarian minority for this, because it was a symbolic step. Csilla, we have discussed a lot with you, not that much as we would like to, but still. What do you think? How different is the political and media situation with the rights of the Hungarian minority in Ukraine from the real situation that we have in place? And if we speak about the rights of Hungarian minority, does the Hungarian population understand that even the law of 2017 was not aimed to attack Hungarian minorities? Nobody thought about the Hungarian minority, that's true, but the aim of attack was the Russian language and the need to Ukrainize the society in large Ukrainian cities in the east. Nobody wanted to ever attack the Hungarian minority. Do Hungarians understand that Ukraine did not aim to have another enemy in Budapest? Well, I can tell you the way it looked from the point of view of experts. Oh, sorry. Let me repeat it once again. So let me show you what it looked like from the point of view of experts and what steps were taken in Ukraine, how they were perceived as far as this law on minorities is concerned. Well, first of all, the law on education, the law on language, and all the related laws were really limiting the rights of minorities. This is number one, and they were not the grounds for the Russian aggression or the response to the Russian aggression. But the Ukrainian policy made an exception only for the Crimean Tatars. But it failed to somehow separate the Russian issue from other minorities, so they did it all together. The Venice Commission found the solution in 2020 in the opinion of the Venice Commission regarding the amendments to the Latvian law on education in the languages of minorities. This opinion says that we can differentiate the minorities of the EU member states that speak the languages of the EU member states and other countries. And then Ukraine passed the law which did not take this into account and did not pay any attention to this opinion of the Venice Commission. This approach was applied for the first time only in December 2023, when all the laws limiting the rights of national minorities were to be changed, and there was already some separation of the Russian issue and Russian people in Ukraine from the other national minorities. When there was already an urgent need for that, only then it was done. So in a way, I'm criticizing Ukraine here because we need to be objective. We need to really take into account all the aspects of that process. Why are these changes? What do the changes result in? Now, it seems to me that Hungary doesn't want any amendments in the legislation because now it's a political issue already, not related to the meaning. We remember our today's first panel, and unfortunately, I think that this is just a purely political issue. Thank you for the answer. In our institute, we are working at the researching of this range of topics, not just in Zakarpattia region, because of course Zakarpattia region is unique, but we do have some other regions that are also unique in this respect. Well, I'm sorry if I may add, sorry for interruption, but I don't see Hungarians here. Well, I will make you acquainted. We will have a person who is supposed to comment. I don't see the commentator, and well, I would say that the Hungarian policy in Ukraine is a two-polar one. because if you see any Hungarian, that is just the representative of the Democratic Association of Hungarians of Ukraine. But we don't see any other representatives. We don't see any representatives of the Hungarian culture in Zakarpattia. But you are having a discussion not with the controversy, not with the Democratic Association. So how are you supposed to talk to them if they are never present during the discussions? Well, rather apt to say this, but we always invite them. And this invitation is always there. Yes, I understand that, but that's a problem when you cannot reach the stage of a roundtable discussion. And I understand why it's not possible, because Fidesz is not allowing this dialogue to happen. That's true. That's why I say that this is just the political issue, and the heads of this organization are not Zakarpattia Hungarians. Hungarians in Zakarpattia just don't know what to do. Well, thank you for being so honest and sincere. And again, let me stress that we invite everyone, and we have different levels of dialogue, be it public or not public, because our goal is to have a sustainable dialogue between the representatives of civil society, where there is more trust than in the authorities. But actually, the picture is exactly the one that you have described. In the Institute, we work with different regions, Bukovina, Bessarabia, and with the support of the International Renaissance Foundation, we are having some projects, in particular in Odesa region, in Bessarabia, and we can see that the challenges we address as theoretical ones have been there for about 10 years in practice. And I think in Odesa region, by the effort of the local community and local authorities, they have managed to find rather effective models of cooperation, coordination, and dialogue with the representatives of all national minorities, of which they have plenty. So my question is to Yaroslava Riznykova, who represents Odesa region and who actually has been taking care of this process for many years. Could you please tell us, 10 years of war, and Odesa since the 2nd of May 2014 has been under attack. We remember all those attempts to instrumentalize the issue of national minorities in the region. We remember some MPs and what parties they represented. These are the people who try to do this. But what are the lessons learned by you over this period of 10 years? And what lessons learned in Odesa region could be useful for similar regions located in Ukraine, in other parts of Ukraine? Well, to answer your question, let me still refer to the past. It's really true that Odesa region, the same as the Zakarpattia region, and Chernivtsi region have become a platform where those methodologies of fomenting ethnic hatred were developed. And the Russian consulate was very active there. They gave double citizenship. They funded the work of pro-Russian institutions. They provided significant amounts of money, and along with informational propaganda. On the other hand, there was the active work done to tarnish the reputation of Ukraine as the country where Nazism and fascism are being reborn. And here we may recall two Party of the Regions laws dated back to 2008 and 2009. It was about the ban on propaganda of fascism and Nazism. It was MP Tsarov and Yuri Mirosnichenko who submitted the draft law, and they wanted to actually make this topic relevant, in particular bring it to the forefront in the international arena. And there were signatures of 146 MPs representing the Party of the Regions and the Communist Party. They signed the letter addressing the Sejm of Poland, asking to recognize the Volyn tragedy as the genocide of Polish people by Ukraine. And there was even a trip that they made to Poland, but unfortunately these were the MPs of the representing national minorities who also participated in those trips. It was real shock. The Sejm was shocked. It did not support the application, but probably that was the first seed that was planted, and after that we see that this topic has often been raised in our joint discourse, and now we can see that the situation is being aggravated, and different Polish organizations working in Odesa region keep telling about this. They keep raising this issue because they have communication with their Polish counterparts, and they are really concerned about this topic and about the development of this topic and the situation in the future. We had a number of attempts made to foment ethnic hatred, to instigate the national minorities of Ukraine to protest, and that was actually provoked by different destabilization activities. Some of them have already been mentioned today. Let me mention just one. In Uzhhorod in 2018, there was the arson of the office of Hungarians. In Odesa region in 2017, there was some yellow paint on the monument in Belgrade, the monument to Hungarian soldiers, and it was also written that they should go to Sofia. Then there were a number of incidents when synagogues in Odesa, Uman, and Kyiv were also painted with different signs representing Pravy sector, or the right sector, which is a radical party. And by the way, this party was really organized by Russia. They came everywhere where it was necessary. We also remember Huta Pieniacki, and the monument was also destroyed there, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, when we are commenting upon this situation, we need to understand that the noise behind all those events is really high, but unfortunately real information is not coming when the investigation into the incidents is done, and when it becomes known that suppose the arson of the Uzhhorod Hungarian office was staged by the Polish people who were paid by the Russian propagandists. There is even the court decision of the Polish court saying this, but nobody knows about this. Nobody speaks about that. So this shows where we can work further. We should disseminate this information. And when we are talking about all those events, all those directions, and we are recalling the powerful Russian information campaign beyond Ukraine, and the use of fake organizations by Russia and funding of their activity on different platforms where the issues of national minorities are discussed. So when we recall all this, we understand that for Ukraine, that would all come as a tragedy were it not for the national minorities, the representatives of the national minorities and their organizations, which from the very first moments when such incidents were staged, they started saying that it's not us. We understand who is doing this. We understand who is providing the funding for those events. And they further disseminated this information, not just in Ukraine, but in other countries. Thus, national minorities for Odesa region have become the factor that has helped us in our work. And let me give you a couple of examples of this information resistance or information find related to cultural diplomacy. We understand that this is important, and we remember our Mr. Cautious, who changed the situation in the 20s as far as attitude to Ukraine is concerned. And I would say that now Ukraine is supposed to and has to use such situations. And let me recall Bulgarians. According to the census of 2001, we've got more than 150,000 Bulgarians. That is quite a strong element of our ethnic structure in the Odesa region. More than 15 different Bulgarian organizations. And I can mention Tatiana Staneva, producer, the founder of the ethnic movie festival UKO, This year it's are going on in Bulgaria for the first time, and it was already staged in Bolhrad, in Odesa region. And with the beginning of the full-scale invasion, she left for Bulgaria, and she understood, and she was shocked by that. So she understood that Bulgarians really almost don't know anything about the real state of arts in Ukraine. They invited her. They invited Bessarabian Bulgarians to speak because they are an important element of their structure. And they keep appealing to them. So she was invited to different channels where she said that Ukraine is not Russia, Ukraine is not the Soviet Union. She was speaking about the history and about the activity of Bulgarian societies, and it came as a revelation for many people in Bulgaria. Let me remind you that one powerful step that we could witness was when the pro-Russian representatives of the Bulgarian parliament started saying that Bulgarians in Odessa do support Putin and are waiting for Putin with flowers. And then she announced in social media, she showed actually the letter with signature from Bessarabian Bulgarians to the MPs of Bulgaria, showing that Bulgarians like to live in Ukraine. They find this life good here, and they don't support Putin. They ask for weapons to protect Ukraine, to defend Ukraine. There is another example which is also important for us and for the European Union in general. Let me draw the example of the representative of the Jewish national minority, the head of the ghetto prisoners, Roman Schwarzman. He was invited by the head of the German Bundestag to speak, and from that high rostrum, he, the Jew who actually lived through the times in ghetto and the concentration camp, he addressed the diplomats of Germany and the parliamentarians of Germany, saying that Germans were trying to kill me as a Jew in times of World War II, and now I'm being killed as the Ukrainian. Russia doesn't care who you are by nationality. If you live in Ukraine, which from the point of view of Russia is not supposed to exist on the map, then you are the enemy of Russia and you need to be destroyed. And he also said to Germans, don't be afraid, just give weapons to us for us to be able to defend ourselves. And we've got plenty of such examples of interviews, of expressing the viewpoints of Ukrainians through the languages of national minorities. I can give you a number of such examples which yielded positive effects already in the first days of the full-scale invasion. Thank you, Yaroslava. I will still get back to you. But to finish off with this first round of questions, let's have something positive. That's why Chernivtsi, where my wife is from, is left for the end. I cannot tell anything bad about it. And we have our representative from Chernivtsi, Yulia Hrytsku. You know, your region is the region of the most scarce bad news about inter-ethnic tension. So how did you manage to do it? Because I think that you have not few problems that Zakarpattia or Odesa regions have with national minorities. Sometimes that may pop up as the jurisdiction of the territory of the Romanian Orthodox Church, religious issues. But how do you manage, and do you generally manage to have this interregional dialogue? Because we are talking about northern or southern Bukovina. You are the neighbors of Romanian and also Bukovina. So do you manage to remove this local tension? And thank you for the question. Thank you for having me here. Well, first of all, you don't know all the news because you are not reading Romanian media and Romanian comments. They have got quite many negative news. And if you were in this room, you would even say that, well, the representatives of the Romanian national minority have not been given a glass, and Polish people and Hungarians have not been given a glass of water or a bottle of water. But, you know, you can find negative things and elements anywhere. suppose we now have a repairing process close to the square of Mihai Eminescu, but the Romanian minority may say that it was exactly on the day of the Romanian language that they removed all the slabs there for us to stay in dirt. But it depends on how you treat the news. But our administration is really doing a lot to improve cooperation at the level of NGOs, at the level of communities, and at the interregional level. In spite of the martial law this year, we introduced the program to support national minorities, and some money is given from the budget of the region for some festivals, for some movie festivals, for book printing. But again, there was some skepticism because the budget is really small. Romania would actually give the same amount of money, but in euros, not in hryvnias. But, you know, it was at the interregional level that Chernivtsi, Suceava got immense support at the moment of the Russian full-scale invasion. It was humanitarian support, it was support of refugees, border, frontier, infrastructure. That was everything we were helped with, and there was no problem with tension, with pressure. I think that they forgave us everything that they had been concerned with before. And it was until the moment of election, because every election is about pressure, is about radical parties that keep disseminating propaganda and keep talking about the pressure on the national minorities. And you know, there may be a sparkle and there will be a great row as a result of that. We used to have very good relations with the previous manager of Suceava Powiat, and well, there were some religious conflicts, something like that, but we managed to somehow fix the issue before it got into the media and before it could turn into a scandal. I would also like to say that as far as the official language is concerned, well, that's quite a problem for the elderly people who actually graduated from universities or from institutes of the Republic of Moldova, and mainly they've been communicating in Russian all their lives long. That's why it's very difficult for them to switch to Ukrainian. But young people, young generation, well, they show great results at all the tests, at all the Olympiads and contests, at the national multi-subject test, and they don't have any problems with the Ukrainian language. And this is also thanks to the law and education. No matter what they say, but I, as the representative of the national minority, fully support that law. Thank you. Let's go over to the next round, but I would ask you to provide meaningful but quick answers. So the first question will be for Volodymyr Kulyk. It's a difficult and tricky question. I don't know how you're going to do with this within 2 minutes, but war is an existential danger which naturally stimulates the development of the unified political Ukrainian nation. And how do we not lose the guidance in this process? How we do not forget that we want to build a democratic state, because there is a temptation to focus with all our energy and other resources on the development of the Ukrainian nation. But we shouldn't probably forget about the national minorities that we have, because national minorities are sometimes aggressive. We are sometimes aggressive. We claim that everything's going to be Ukraine. So we are living in times of chaos and noise. So how do we not lose the guidance? How do we not forget about democracy, about Europe, about the place we started heading for 10 years ago during the Euromaidan, and how helpful national minorities could be for us in this process as the natural preventive mechanisms for us not to become a copy of Russian chauvinism? 2 minutes.
There is no simple answer here. We are trying to find this answer every day. We are making mistakes. Ideally, we learn from our mistakes. It's bad if we don't do it. So it's bad if you, for example, make a mistake, then you repeat this mistake. And from what I hear from the citizens of Ukraine, the majority of people feels the need for this national unity as the foundation of our resilience, foundation of our fight for survival. These people who think about future generations understand that without unity, well, our fate is decided. Probably for minorities it is different because they have other countries they can go to, their ethnic countries, but still lots of people think that here is their country, here is the country for their children. And for these people, we should create the feeling of justice. We all have our problems and challenges. We all have certain restrictions. We definitely have to sacrifice something, but it's bad when some people have to do more sacrifices than some others. For example, some people have super great pensions and some people have to pay for some excess of fuel. Well, this is we do have certain positive things. We have this demarcation line between the front line and the rear. We have, unfortunately, certain demarcation line between the people in power and the common people, but we do not have this demarcation line between ethnic groups. But still, we have certain feeling of injustice among the national minorities. They think that Ukrainians don't understand that they want to preserve their national identity. And that means that probably we have to not to have some ill thought over legislation. Probably we should amend some real policies and we should communicate these policies. For example, the law of education or the law of language, about languages, they were not properly communicated as the right of all citizens to use the national language. I have been writing about this for years and nobody was actually listening to me. People were talking about the national language as something sacred. We have to preserve it for the sake of the language. But nobody said that we have to preserve the Ukrainian language in order for everyone for people not to be humiliated. And we really should understand that our people speak not only the Ukrainian language, and the Ukrainian people love not only Moderator, and our people like not only Ukrainian sacred cities, but also sacred cities of other countries and other national minorities. And the final point, we should be aware of the fact that now we do not have any opportunity to properly communicate all those things to those people who want to still consider themselves to be Russians. And this is the issue that we shall have to resolve after our victory. It means we have to clearly state that we are going to resolve this issue, that we are not going to discriminate people against their ethnic origin, but there is the security issue and there is very big sensitivity around the Russian question. And now we cannot treat the Russian language in the same way as we treat, for example, the Polish or the Hungarian or the Romanian language. But still, the basic things are still there. I have a question to Ms. Csilla, because we are talking about the fact that we should hear the voice of the national minorities and respect their rights. You were very accurate. Well, what we say, Ukraine should not be discussed without Ukraine, and very often we should probably apply the same principle to the other minorities and to the other people. So how can we engage the Hungarians in Zakarpattia in order to promote Ukraine? Once again, I would like to say that I'm not the ambassador, I'm not the advisor. I will just mention what is the essence of the problem in the sidelines. There was an interview with the mayor of Kharkiv, and he said that Ukraine will be Ukrainian-speaking country. Just be patient. And he was right. This is the modern reality. Read your own history. Read Hrushevsky. Why it is bad to say that Ukraine is for the Ukrainians. I do not remember when it was written in 16 or 18. It looks like he were writing it now. The article is really very clear. The question is to Yaroslava. The main threat in Bessarabia is lack of information channels, impossibility to distribute the information to the national minorities. Well, Transnistria is close and they broadcast understandable content in the understandable language, but it is hostile to Ukraine. So, considering the point that tension may be growing and it may be used against Ukraine, do people in Kyiv listen to you and are they willing to resolve those issues? The issue of protection of the information space is really important. And this issue definitely should be addressed and should be addressed very quickly. And this quickly, unfortunately, lasts already for several decades. Here we have Solomia Bobrovska. He was the deputy head of regional administration for more than 7 or 8 years ago. And at that time, she already was talking about broadcast equipment in transborder regions. And I would say that according to the latest reform, 11 districts had their borders with Moldova and Transnistria. And you understand what kind of information challenges we are talking about when people actually have access only to the Russian channel. And definitely is under influence of those channels. Well, here in the room we have experts who understand these issues. There have been certain steps taken, some documents have been signed, but unfortunately there are some subjective and objective reasons that the question is still topical, unfortunately, and I think it will remain topical in future. We are doing whatever we can in order to address this information product. For example, the Polish people created their channel, Życie Polskie in Odesa, from the very first days of war. And there they talk about the real stories of life of Poles. Though in Poland they think that, well, all Poles already are in Poland, but well, the Polish community is there, and in that channel they broadcast such stories. And this is the specific product, and it should be supported not only with the Polish money, with the Polish funds, but also from the state budget, because this is something that should be supported. Or, for example, film festival Oko, that after the beginning of the full-scale invasion already had a tour in Europe, and that also talks about national communities and national minorities in different regions of Ukraine. So this project, for example, has never been funded from the state budget, and we actually requested this, but still. So it means that it is not always that the central executive authorities understand the importance of a certain product produced by the national communities, and it should be in the focus of the attention. And Ukrainian diaspora now are not only the representatives of the title nation, but the representatives of different nationalities who are the citizens of Ukraine. We continue with the information topic, and my question is to Mr. Andrzej. How in the Central European countries the image of the Nazi Ukraine that actually restricts the rights of national minorities is used in order to tune the society against Ukraine, against Ukrainian integration to the EU, and how Ukraine can effectively overcome this image.
Well, the worst what can happen is to have this misperception. I can give it, it will be an example, Hungarian, Ukrainian actually. So if you go to Budapest, you can hear often that basically Hungarian is not allowed to be spoken on the streets of Zakarpattia, that Hungarians are beaten up, etc. So there is this completely, exaggerated picture. When you come here, you see how this situation is. I'm not saying that the situation is perfect, but these are completely fictional narratives. When you go to Kyiv, you sometimes can hear that what Hungary wants is to regain the land. Primarily, that's something that motivates actually Hungarian government, which is also not true. And even if I'm not saying that there are no irredentist fantasies in Hungary, I mean it's mostly about the political survival of the certain government. So it's very important. I think here is the role for the region, for the people of the region, to show how this situation is in fact. It's of course, I mean, I will not give you a magic formula, but I think it's very often the problem of misperception and kind of repeated narratives that are false, and they are of course very often exacerbated by external factors.
Thank you very much. And again, the question is to Yulia, and again, asking about some positive news. We have heard from IDPs that it was very easy for them to get integrated into the region when this diversity is very well respected, diversity in everything. And well, in the publications you have mentioned, you can probably read that the state is sending IDPs to those regions where there are lots of national minorities in order to change the ethnic picture of the region. So could you please tell the situation in the area where we have the compact settlement of the Romanian minority? We should remember the key slogan of the EU, unity in diversity. This is the key point. Talking about IDPs, IDPs really feel comfortable in those communities or in those districts where the Romanian community was living. It is due to the fact that the elder generation speaks the Russian language. And I know, for example, a person who in Kharkiv was a very famous hairdresser, and she was working with VIP clients, and now she's enjoying her life, and she can buy, for example, whatever she needs, and Europe is close, and there are very good people, very nice people who are just similar to those people she was talking and communicating with in Kharkiv. Do the representatives of the national community mention the point of sending IDPs in order to disperse the situation? Well, no. Lots of people went abroad in order to get some social payments, And well, this was their choice. The children in a lyceum in Hrytsku are studying in are taught in Romanian, and this is positively perceived. Romania actually hosted about officially registered 84,000 people, and we know that probably they do not want to come back, and this is 10% of all the regions, of all the population in the region. Well, we have three countries, Romania. For Romanians, the best situation will be when all the countries where they have Romanian diaspora will be the members of the EU, because the rules will be just the same for everybody. Slovakia is another country, and it supports integration of Ukraine to the EU, but does not support joining NATO. And Poland is about both things. When I go to some other regions and when I go abroad and when people ask me about the Carpathian and national minorities, I usually answer the question. And actually, for example, if you ask a Ukrainian person in Vinnytsia or any other region, do you want to make concessions? Do you want to fulfill all the requirements of Orban? Definitely the answer will be no, never. If you ask the same question in the way, do you want all the citizens of Ukraine, irrespective of their ethnic origin, religion, etc., have lots of rights? If do you want all the Ukrainians to enjoy their rights here in Ukraine? Definitely the answer will be yes, it should be like this. So the question actually determines the answer. Not only, you should understand that now the average Ukrainian Hungarian in Zakarpattia is in a trap. This person understands that he or she wants to stay here in Ukraine, but you cannot probably say openly that you are a Hungarian. So we should not make pressure on those people. Yeah, we don't want to do it. And now I would like to give the floor to the main editor-in-chief of InfoPost and the serviceman, Vitaly Dichuk. Thank you. I will probably be here because I will feel more comfortable here. Andriy has already mentioned that we address the issue of national communities when there are some requirements on the part of our neighbors or when there is some cultural festival. This has been so historically, and this is wrong. But what we didn't mention today is that those Hungarians, Romanians, or Moldavian people living in the territory of Ukraine are part of our country. And now they are part of the political nation that is being built under such difficult conditions and the condition of war. Definitely the approaches have been changing, and in such forums as ours, during the previous discussions, and we have elaborated a number of key principles which should be used in order to build certain discourse around the national communities. And the first thing, before we implement certain changes, we have to listen to national communities. You cannot just adopt a law without knowing how it should be implemented. I was born in Yesenia village. This is the Hutsul area. And in the village I was born in has lots of Hungarian people. Hungarian language is used in school. There is Hungarian business, etc., etc. And these people participate in the life of this village. And if you ask, for example, Mr. Andriy, if there is some pressure of neo-Nazi on those people, probably this will sound something ridiculous. Also, for example, in 2019, two grades, two classes in one of the lyceums decided that the last year should be taught in Ukrainian because those children will stay in Ukraine. So we have really to ask the national minorities before we implement something. And this implementation should be done in a comprehensive way. We can write lots of laws, which will be really good and which will be required by the Venice Commission or Budapest. We can have lots of curricula in Hungarian, in Ukrainian, but if we do not have high quality methodology, if we do not have people who can teach in the language of the national community, these laws will be just laws on paper, and who will need such a reform? And the reforms we are just discussing should be of complex character. And here we have had those 11 items set to Ukraine. And, for example, we have this situation with Mukachevo Castle. We have the situation with the Hungarian community in Mukachev district. So, should we include these things into the legislation? On the one hand, the situation should be addressed. On the other hand, well, probably we should not include this very narrow and niche point. We should not include it into the level of legislation. That means that we have to ensure communication. This communication should not only be with the Hungarian Ukrainians here, but we should also talk to the leaders of the community. We should probably give people what they need, but again, it doesn't work like this. If we do not talk to the Hungarian speaking Ukrainians here, if we do not communicate to the Hungarian people in Budapest, if we do not talk about this issue in Brussels, it means the issue will be again not resolved. How should we communicate? Historically, it happens so that we usually discuss the issue of national communities when we discuss some cultural festivals, some dish festivals, etc., etc. And again, it's not a good way. The representatives of national communities will feel themselves as Ukrainians when they will become full-fledged members of the civil society, when they will the right to participate in the life of the country they live in. Very often in Facebook, I read the comment, and this is like the mirror principle. For example, the people say that if there is a requirement to open Hungarian-speaking school here in Ukraine, why the same things are not opened in Hungary? And we discussed this point, for example, when the first Ukrainian-speaking school was opened in Budapest. At that time, we were talking to the founder of the school, Ms. Biskaravina, and this mirror should not be raised at the primitive level, at the level of specific things, but it should be implemented at the level of principles. For example, now there are more Ukrainians in Hungary than ethnic Hungarians here in Ukraine. So does it mean that Hungary should have twice more Ukrainian schools? And the final point, the point of security. We have already mentioned the issue of Nazi people, and the issue is from whom should we protect the national communities here in Ukraine? From those mythical neo-Nazi people or from those threats that are present all over Ukraine? I'm talking about disinformation, the pressure of Russia, and so on and so forth. Only when we understand the point who we should protect people from, only in that case we shall have the constructive changes. Thank you very much for this very constructive discussion.